We're on? Yep. Awesome, thank you. So good morning everyone, and thank you for attending our Ordinary Council meeting today, our final meeting of the term. So I declare the ordinary meeting of the 5th of March 2024 open at 10 a.m. I do advise members of the public that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded in accordance with the Council's standing orders. Council and staff are reminded of their responsibilities under their respective codes of conduct, both inside the Council meeting and when dealing externally on behalf of Council. On behalf of the Whitsunday Regional Council, I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet here today and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We do recognise their deep, enduring connection to country, and we extend our respect and gratitude for their wisdom and culture. So welcome councillors, WRC staff members, members of the public, both in the gallery and on the live stream, and any media that may be present. Let's get going. So first on the list, item number 1 is apologies leave of absence, but I do believe we're all here today, so we don't have any of those. So moving on to number 2, our condolences, and on behalf of the Whitsunday Regional Council, we would like to acknowledge and pay our respects to the recently departed of the Whitsundays region and offer our sincere condolences to their families and their loved ones. So can I have everyone up standing for a minute's silence, please? Thank you everyone, please be seated. Next on the agenda is item number 3, the confirmation of minutes, and I would like to move the minutes subject to change. Seconded by Councillor Simpson. So just want to read it out correctly. So just want to note in the minutes that I have requested the CEO to note this, that the previous meeting last week, I did have a prescribed conflict of interest, which I found out after the meeting. Due to that, it was actually a submitter in the report, but the submitter's name was not in the report. So it was easy for me to actually miss that. So it's on the application number 202 312800, the material change of use for the SDA 22 and 24 Pantel Street, Bowen. Again, I don't believe I had a conflict of interest because I didn't realise that that was a submitter to the application, and I also did not vote in favour of the submitter either. And I'd also like to mention that I've also asked that, requested the CEO that we, in future, a list of submitters are given to, are brought to council so that we know if they're not in the report, that they are given to council so that this doesn't happen again. It's very easy for us to be put at risk both as councillors and as council if those names are not appearing in the reports, it's very easy to not know who those submitters are. So for anyone that is in the future, for any list of submitters and lists of tenderers, to minimise the risk to both councillors and council would be very useful. And also like to remind councillors under the Code of Conduct as well, that if anyone is aware, if any councillor is aware that any other councillor has a conflict of interest, that they are under obligation as well to mention that in the meeting as well. So can I open that up for comments? Councillor Simpson.
Oh yeah, just a comment, thanks Madam Mayor. Like over the last 4 years, we only ever see the names of the submitters if we ask for them, and I think it's important going forward that they're put out there for all of us to see, no matter how big or small the item is, because it's easily overlooked, and yeah, with the laws and regulations nowadays, we have to cover our backs wherever possible, was the comment.
Thank you. Councillor Brockett.
Is this the most practical way of dealing with it? Because what we're doing, we're adjusting the minutes of the meeting that never happened. So I understand what you're trying to do, but should it be in your mayoral minute now saying that this has happened? Because what we're doing, we're confirming the minutes of the previous meeting, and now we're adding into something you'd like to make an amendment to declare a conflict, which never happened. So we just can't change the minutes like that because it never happened. So I'm just wondering whether it should be a mayoral minute now to reflect on the previous minutes, because that is a true and accurate record of what happened, not what we've just put up there.
Okay, I'll pass to the CEO because I'll get advice.
So what we're actually putting a note. So the minutes will be adopted as the minutes, and there's a note that's going to be added to the minutes that actually has this statement. So it's not changing the minutes; it's just a note in relation to the minutes.
And I'll just check with governance. Director Jason, that's...
Yeah, Madam Chair. I mean, all we're doing is making the record of the meeting complete by acknowledging a conflict of interest that would have occurred at the meeting, and it wasn't known until after the fact, but we're really just making a note for completeness.
Thank you, Director. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Clay.
I understand it's best to do this after the time. I've gone into the development application, actually read all of the full submissions. It's hard to recognise a name that could create a conflict. I think specifically internally, and it is public information submitted, but I still think internally we can do better at circulating those things that may create conflicts for us in the future.
So can I put that motion to... Sorry?
I'm just wondering whether that wording is correct, because it shouldn't it be something like Mayor Hall would like to recognise the fact that a conflict of interest wasn't made and recognises that it should have been or something, because that's now we're putting into the minutes. If I was to read these minutes next week, you would think that you declared a conflict of interest.
Okay, so
and it just hadn't been recorded.
Yeah.
So I think that's just totally wrong.
So Director Jason, would you like to help with the wording on this one, please? So I've actually requested that the CEO note in the minutes
That a conflict should have been made.
that a conflict should have been made at the ordinary meeting.
Because you've got to,
Yes.
you've just got to place yourself in 2 weeks' time or someone picking up the minutes and reading the minutes to think what has happened. And the way it was originally put up there, it's like, oh, it's been left out of the minutes and you actually declared an interest.
Yeah.
And it clearly hasn't been.
Thank you, Councillor Brunker. Good point. Councillor Clifford.
Can I ask a question? How was this brought to your attention that you had a conflict of interest, or did you discover it afterwards?
No, it was actually brought to my attention
After the fact.
after the fact.
you through the chair. I was one of the ones that did pick it up. I wasn't present at the meeting, but I did alert the CEO to look into that prior to moving forward. So I'm not sure what sort of happened there, but it was mentioned prior to the meeting.
Councillor Brunker?
And I also notified the CEO after the meeting as well, because when I was looking at the minutes, I couldn't actually find the letter, the actual submitters, and I thought I must have been off in La La Land. That's why I didn't mention it until I realised it was a separate email that had come through, because if it was on our agenda, I would have picked it up straight away, believe me not.
That's the exact reason I didn't pick it up, Councillor Brunker, because it wasn't in the report.
It was sent to us separately.
Does that closely reflect?
Yeah, but I'd also like it stated in there that it wasn't in the report. The submitter's name wasn't in the report, so it was easily missed, and that I've requested.
Because this
Thank you. I just think we all know the situation we put ourselves in by being here, and this does actually open you up to the possibility of misconduct on this one. We should be noting in there just to be sure that it is something that we were unaware of at the time. Whether a separate motion.
Well, that's why I'm wanting in there it to be noted that I was unaware at the time, and that the request to have that made easier for the councillors by being given a list of submitters and also tenderers. So it can also happen with tenderers, so we're not always written up in the report for public confidentiality.
Is that a more complete representation?
Just, I think you also need to add another paragraph which basically says that the CEO has been requested to provide some.
Sorry, Warren, we can't hear you. The CEO?
CEO be requested to provide a list of the submitters and tenderers.
Has been requested to provide a list of all submitters and tenderers.
Tenderers
Yeah,
to assist the councillors
in advance.
identification of any conflicts.
Sorry, it's the last bit.
So it's kind of identification. So it's councillors in identifying.
To identify.
So no advance. Sorry, councillors to assist councillors to identify any conflicts.
To assist councillors. Yeah. To assist councillors.
Assist councillors to
To identify any potential conflicts. Is that what you want?
Yeah. So I'm just going to go back to the top bit as well. Jane was not shown. Was not take the word clearly out because it was not shown. wasn't in there at all. And was not shown,
Down a bit, third last line.
was not shown in the meeting report.
So not sure.
And the Mayor was not aware of the submitter at this time. And I'd also like to say that I didn't vote in favour of it either.
You actually went with the officer's recommendation.
I went with the officer's recommendation.
That's probably a better way of doing it.
The Mayor did not. Except did not vote in favour of the decision.
Did not vote in favour of the submission. Submitted.
Of the submission. Or the application.
No,
The submitter. The donor and submitter.
Yep.
So did not vote in favour of the donor and submitter. I think that probably words it better.
In favour of the donor's submission, is that what you mean?
Yes.
Oh well.
CEO has requested to provide a list of submitters and tenderers to assist councillors to identify any potential conflicts. Yeah,
In the future,
yeah, in the future.
very
And do we need to put in there about just a reminder? We'll leave that. Leave that bit. Okay, so that we are confirming the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the 28th of February 2024 as correct, with my note as written up there today. So can I put that to the vote? All of those in favour? Motion is carried 7-0. Thank you. On to item number 4, business arising. Would any councillor like to raise any business arising from previous minutes? Right. Number 5, the mayoral minute. We don't have one today. Number 6, item number 6, notice of motions. No notice of motions have been received. Item number 7, deputations. No deputations have been received for this meeting. Item number 8, petitions and questions on notice. Would any councillor like to table any petitions today? No. Is any were there any questions on notice? No. Number 9 then, we'll move on to questions from the gallery. We haven't received any questions from the gallery this week. However, the responses from last week's meeting will be responded to before the next meeting and in the next agenda. Given that we've only a week apart for our meetings, we haven't had time to actually finish addressing that yet. So just to note that they will be responded to the question from last week. Who's here? Mr. Roger Taylor will be included in the agenda for next week, and you will, before that agenda comes out, you will be responded to. So thank you. Thank you for your patience. So next on the agenda is item number 10, our committee reports. And the first on the list is our Audit and Risk Committee minutes. So moved by Councillor Clifford, seconded by Councillor Wright. And I'm going to hand over to our Director Jason to give a little bit of an overview. Thank you, Director Jason.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good morning, councillors. You are here today in receipt of the final Audit and Risk Management Committee minutes for the term. The meeting held on Tuesday, the 20th of February 2024. At that meeting, the internal audit function presented 2 reports, one in relation to the progress of health and safety, and the second in relation to the assessment around the planning scheme. Those reports came with recommendations on how improvements could have been made, and so focus will be directed to ensuring that we follow through on those recommendations. The reports generally were in accordance with the schedule that is produced each year, which is known as the Priorities Guide. An update was provided around the valuation of assets. We have significant asset classes being revalued through this financial year for the upcoming financial statements for the 23-24 financial year. They are in relation to marine, transport, water and sewer assets, and so that's a significant portion of Council's asset base there, which will have an impact on the accounts that we present for the 23-24 year. It also confirmed the audit plan for the external audit of Council for the 23-24 financial year. The majority of that work happens between now and July, August, when the financial statements are completed. We provided updates to the Council also in relation to progress on matters relating to cyber security and also our workplace health and safety performance. Of note in the report presented by the Queensland Audit Office was recognition of the local government report to Parliament on local government audits for the 22-23 financial year. That was tabled at the last meeting of Council, and I just want to reconfirm that that report presented a positive report card for this Council. It demonstrated that across the sustainability indicators and also against the financial performance and internal controls that Council had received all green lights, and we are considered a low risk for financial sustainability. I will recall to Council that of the 77 councils in Queensland, 48 of those councils are at medium or moderate to high risk of being unsustainable into the future. So Council should remain proud of the position that it holds. It's in a stable financial position. The latest audit that we've had indicates clear markings across the board. There are no outstanding issues that are being carried forward, and that was recognised by the committee and the work that's been undertaken by staff right across the organisation. Otherwise, the audit minutes are there for receipt today, Madam Mayor.
Does anyone have any questions for Director Jason? So can I put that we receive the unconfirmed minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on 20th of February 2024 to the vote? All those in favour? Motion is carried 7-0. Next on our agenda is item number 11, Officers' Reports, and 11.1, Development Application for Development Permit for Operational Works, Advertising Device being freestanding sign in form of billboard, 82 Shute Harbour Road, Canonbar. I have the recommendation up there. So the recommendation is to refuse. Do I have anyone to remove that? Thank you, Councillor Simpson. To move. Move. Yeah, not a move. Yeah. Just clarifying one. Would anyone like to second that? Councillor Bowman. Thank you. So, Director McGuffin, can I just hand over to you to give a little bit of an overview on that one, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The application in front of Council is for 2 billboard signs. There were signs there previous, but they were real estate signs, so they sort of fall under a different jurisdiction or a different issue as far as their assessment goes. Those real estate signs did relate to the property on which they were situated. What we have now is the property has been sold, so it's no longer up for sale. Those signs have been taken down, but the framework behind it remained. So there are now signs on there directing people to a premise that is many, many kilometres away. So the problem with that is that there are conditions in the planning scheme in regard to the frequency and where billboard signs should be and the spacing they should be between each other. But also there's a matter that there is signs that relate to a property a long way away that if you start promoting those, then you're going to have a proliferation of signs. So it will have amenity impacts. So these 2 signs are there to direct people to either keep going in that direction or turn around and go back. But because they are billboard signs in the wrong location and set a bad precedent, we've recommended refusal.
Thank you. Councillor Clifford?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, to the Director. So what's the difference between those signs, just asking for a friend, and the other two big signs that are on the same property advising people not to park their cars there for sale, or the electronic one down opposite the police station, which is directing people to a bar in town?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the signs on the subject land were put there because council received complaints about cars being parked on the property, and in response the proponent or the landowner put those signs up. We spoke to them about it. We encouraged them to do a smaller sign. That was the landowner's option, and those signs have eventuated. They don't promote anything other than keeping cars off the property. The sign opposite the police station, my understanding it's either gone or going today. There has been a discussion with the owner or the person that's leasing that. So my understanding is that that will be removed if it hasn't already been.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bowman?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do recognise maintaining the amenity of our streets, especially in the urban areas. It's sometimes difficult to tell the difference between a billboard and the fact you can have a big red building with writing down the side, which one does actually affect the amenity more. But we also have a large number of local businesses that need to advertise and market. So this is where I'm struggling. If it was a real estate sign, we'd be ticking it off. The fact that it's advertising a local business, we don't. I would just question the Director, could this be done as a temporary sign application rather than a permanent billboard? I think we've all previously supported you in knowing we'd love this block of land to actually be a residential development. But I'm just wondering if we pulled these down and they drove that trailer straight up from Altman Avenue and put in a temporary advertising device application, would the signage be allowed under that approval?
Through you, Madam Mayor, look, if we receive an application, regardless of what it is, we would consider it. We're obliged to do that. There is a proliferation of signs on trailers, some with wheels, some without wheels. Regional Strategy and Planning has been negotiating an outcome with Julie's team, so we're moving forward on those signs because the proliferation is getting quite significant. And if there is a trailer that wants to come onto this land, they'll put in an application and we'll consider it and process it.
Yeah, so just to separate, could these billboards come back as an application for temporary signage, or is there a separation?
Sorry, Councillor Bowman. Look, they could. If council wanted to approve them temporarily, that's up to council. It's certainly not forming part of our recommendation.
I'll just make a comment. I do remember not long ago when we looked at signs and the amenity of having signs too close together, and really thinking about, do we want to be, when people come into the Whitsundays, do we want them to just see sign up, sign up, sign, or do we want that natural amenity and that to stay there? So yeah, I think there probably needs to be, I don't want to vote against any business being supported with a sign, but I still feel that there needs to be that, they need to be in the proper place, and there needs to be, if we do it for one, we have to do it for everyone. So I think if we're going against the planning scheme on this one, then it opens us up to then having to others coming forward as well. So I'll be supporting the Rec Officer's recommendation. Councillor Wright.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, my question is, like, where is the proper place? Because, look, I know maybe a month ago or so, there was 2 applications that we had to vote on. One was just out of town, and that wasn't supported because it was rural, and yeah, we wanted to keep the amenity how it was. And then there was another one which was in town, and that wasn't supported either. So, you know, look, I think, like, if we've allowed, so, and I just want to clarify, are these signs currently in place at the present time? Because the photos look pretty real. And if we have supported like other businesses using it, I don't have a problem. Like they're advertising a free bus, which is a benefit to the community as well, I think. So, yeah, I'm all for this.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I guess it depends on how local businesses are advertising. You know, years ago there wasn't any social media, so there was a significant emphasis on these physical signs that you see as you drive down the road. So that's certainly changed. Council introduced controls into the planning scheme that basically increased the distance between billboard signs, and they were predominantly in the rural area. The signs that the council refused were on Gregory Cannon Valley Road, if my memory is correct, and they didn't satisfy any of the conditions that the council has said. Yes, you can put up signs so long as you comply with these criteria. And part of that aim was to make sure that when you didn't come into the township or through the area, you didn't get sign after sign after sign. So there is an amenity impact. We also refused a couple of signs close to town, bowling club in Airlie, and if you drive past there is a proliferation of signs that they've got. It's either along the fence or at the back of the shelters of the little, can I call them bowling cubicles? And all of a sudden there was another big pillar sign smack bang in the corner. So that was more about the frequency and the busyness of all the signs as you drove past. So all of that goes into the amenity considerations, and all of the controls in the planning scheme are aimed at providing a mix between the ability to advertise and the ability to have a reasonable amenity as you go through. So, and look, that's the difficult thing that the council needs to address.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you again to the director. So what's the difference between half of a dozen places that I can take you to? They've got signs up on their fences, and then if they haven't got a sign up, they've got a vehicle that's all sign written parked up in a very visible spot. Do we have any control over that, or is that a local law issue?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the second part first. I wouldn't like to get into trying to control words advertising on people's cars. If you would like us to follow up signage that you think may be illegal or unapproved or anything else, yes, we will do that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do recall going back into the planning amendment, there was a number of submissions put in about signage and possible updates for our signage regulations. From memory, not one of them suggested more billboards within our urban area. We're looking at outcomes which would benefit their shop fronts and their existing properties. I do think this could be a slippery slope. Personally, if I was going to see something, I'd rather it be an electronic billboard that would change over every 6 seconds and give numerous businesses opportunity to market. And if we go down these fixed structures, I would be worried that we'd be starting to see them constantly along our streets. Thank you.
Any further comments, questions?
So Neil, you said these signs are definitely in place right now.
And they are, yes.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with that.
Just make a comment, please, Madam Mayor. Like, we have approved signs all along Shute Harbour Road, Gregory Cannon Valley Road's every 3 kilometres. I'm not sure about Shute Harbour Road, it's a lot closer together. And if any business wants to advertise on these signs, all they have to do is ring up the company and say, look, you know, could you pay a fee? That they're approved signs, so that's what I'm backing here today. And we've seemed to have gone off the agenda item, you know, we're talking about cars and different things now. I'm just lost.
Councillor Collins.
So Neil, these signs are already in place. Have we had any complaints against them, submissions against them at all? Or?
Through Madam Mayor, no, we haven't, but they were caught up in a compliance. We've driven past, they're pretty obvious. They're contrary to the planning scheme, so that's why it's got onto our books.
Okay, so no further comments or questions? So can I put that officer's recommendation to the vote? All of those in favour? All of those against? So motion is carried 6-1. So moving on to the next item, which is 11.3, oh, I did miss that one. Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Lucky I've got you sitting next to me. Okay, so 11.2, the request for a negotiated decision notice, material change of use, outdoor sport and recreation, archery and multi-sports court, Heatherwood Court Proprietary Limited. So moved by Councillor Simpson, seconded by Councillor Bowman. So Neil, could you please just give a bit of an overview of what this is about, please?
Sure, thank you, Madam Mayor. Council recently considered the application for the archery field and some other leisure activities on the site. As part of the approval, Council required a toilet to be provided and connected to water and sewer. The applicants come back and said, well, there's a substantial cost associated with that, plus it is in a flood area, so it would have to be built up above the flood area. And in response, the applicant has said that the resort, whether this is a private recreation facility, the people using it will be staying within 400 metres, not far. So they thought that the closeness of the ablutions in their resort was close enough that the need for the toilet facility was superfluous. So they've come back and just asked Council to remove that condition, and that is what is recommended.
Councillor.
Through you to the director. Would they consider a composting toilet which doesn't need to be connected to anything and apparently available for a couple of grand?
Through you, Madam Mayor, when the suggestion of a composting toilet came in, we did contact the applicant. They remained steadfast in their opposition to it. So yes, we don't have anything in writing. It's just a quick conversation this morning.
Yeah, I've thought about this one, Madam Mayor. The fact that the public won't be involved in this. If the public were involved with it, they should be accepting it at the same standard as everyone else. So the only probably real losers will be the resort guests who have to jump in their buggy and go back to, and then I think the hotel might react if the guests are complaining about having to come back to there all the time. So yeah, I certainly don't have an issue with it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To go back to the meeting video, see, I did ask a question about the composting. I do understand why they don't want to spend the amount of money it costs to get sewage and water pipes in there. They have agreed to go ahead with the shade shelter, which I think is an improvement in its own fact, but I still believe that makes it quite viable to add in a self-standing composting toilet. I think we can say people might hop in their car, drive through the gate, go back into their house and use a toilet, but I think being realistic, we know that it's not just them, it is the environment, the creeks, the residents that live across the road who could be affected if they're playing pickleball, decide they don't want to interrupt their game for 10 minutes. I believe the advice the Director has given is that unfortunately with this negotiated decision notice process we're only allowed to give one. So to move forward with that amenity not only for the guests but also for the surrounding residents and environment, the way forward is to refuse this request and then go back and negotiate.
You seconded this, Councillor Bowman.
I did second this, yes.
So that's your, so are you removing yours? You seconding it or still?
I'm seconding it to open up to discussion of varying the motion.
Okay, so I need to put this motion to the vote. This is the motion that we're voting on at this moment. So just be aware of that. Whatever's on the board up there is what we're actually voting on. Any more final comments or questions? Councillor Wright?
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, look, I've sort of looked through this as well, and I know around the region we don't have toilets in every park around the place, so I think this is a fair request, and yeah, it's not far to go back to the resort.
Okay, so if there's no final questions or comments, then I will put this motion to the vote. All of those in favour? All of those against? Motion is carried 6-1. So next we're on to item number 11.3, our monthly finance report. Moved by Councillor Clifford, seconded by Councillor Bowman. And Director Jason, I would like to hand over to you to just give a little bit of an overview. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The highlight of the monthly council meeting,
It is.
presentation of the finance
We're asking
report,
too much.
last one for the term. Councillors, so you have before you a monthly financial report. Just to clarify, we are required under the Local Government Act to report the financial status of council on a monthly basis, as are the requirements for us to meet on a monthly basis, hence our early meeting in March. On the basis that we have an early meeting, the financial statements are as at around about the 23rd of February, because we had an early close to get a financial report into the agenda. As a result of that early close, a number of the transactions we would normally do in the end of month around accruals and payments for contracts, etc., which generally happen in the last round of the month, aren't in those numbers, and I'll explain, some of the variances that causes as a result of the early close, but we're meeting our statutory obligation, and I'm happy just to reaffirm the stable financial position that we're in. So looking at the monthly financial report, you will note last month, I reported last week that there was a deficit due to a timing error. Obviously that's been reversed now because you can see the operating surplus is just over $42 million. That's the result of the rates being issued, so rates and water accounts were issued and are due for payment later this week. So that means we recognise the revenue now, and hence there won't be the expenses that are incurred through the rest of the year. So there remains that timing difference in relation to the capital position of council, where you're seeing a negative 8.7 million. Again, that's timing and recognition of bringing forward work in progress assets from an accounting perspective. It doesn't necessarily represent a loss as such. I will also recognise that we continue to track ahead of schedule in relation to the investment income that council is receiving, and that's in due part to the healthy financial position that we're finding ourselves in and the current interest rate cycle, which just as of note seems to have plateaued. The current rates that we're looking at now for money are less than we were given a fortnight ago. So there is a reflection of what's been happening at the Reserve Bank level flowing through to interest rates now. The expenditure continues to track below budget in the operating budget, so it's sitting at 85% of where it should be. So we continue to monitor the spend on materials and services. That's also been linked to some supply changes, which we are now seeing, particularly in relation to fleet and capital items becoming more readily available. So we're hoping that by the time we get to 30th of June, we will have been able to rectify some of that slowness from early on. Again, timing differences in relation to the accruals for the end of the month because of the early close of the accounts. The value of Whitsunday Regional Council continues to grow, so you'll see the net community wealth $1.332 billion, so that's recognising those capital assets that we're bringing forward out of work in progress. Probably the point to note around the indicators, certainly the sustainability ratios that I present each month, and we've talked about that being a series of data. You'll see again there are green ticks against that in compliance with what's required at an audit level. Some of the figures are skewed again due to the timing, but they're skewed in a positive way, if that makes sense, so everything continues to be on track. I will note on page 69 of the agenda that there is a red flag against capital delivery. Now that's a timing issue given the cut-off for these accounts, and a lot of the contract payments that we make for capital works happen at the end of the month. So our payment run that we run at the end of the last week of each month is when a lot of those contract payments are made. So the actual numbers in there are a little lower than they would normally be. I'm expecting that to normalise over the next month or two, pending on the weather and the activity that we undertake. I'm probably happy to take the balance of the report as read, Madam Mayor, and answer any questions the council might have.
Comments or questions, Councillor Bowman?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Appreciate the report and quick turnaround for you. We can see that in the skewed numbers in here that we know is just timing, not a reality. The one thing I do see again though is just about our staff expenses. I saw a large string of jobs coming out through Council Direct. I know there's a lot of departments working hard to make up the shortfall. Do we have an idea where this will come to pass, you know, with our overall budget and surplus? Are we going to pick up those staff costs even if we do get to full employment or not?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll start and CEO may like to add on the end of it. Look, we are actively working on the recruitment, Councillor Bowman. What you will have heard as general commentary is that it's actually hard to attract, retain and find staff at the moment, right across a range of professions and across the board. That ties into perhaps some of the accommodation challenges that we see more broadly, not just in our region but across the whole of Australia. We continue actively to undertake recruitment. What we are seeing is that there are less applicants for roles and perhaps we're not getting all the skills that we need in the applications that are coming forward. We do actively manage that budget, so at budget review 2, if we appear to be under in relation to the wages, then we will manage that budget against what the actuals look like. But we'll also balance that against materials and services, because in some areas where we can't find the skills and work that still needs to be done, we might need to look at other avenues, but our focus still remains on gaining employees to do the work day in, day out. CEO might wish to add to that, not sure.
I think attraction and retention is a serious thing for all councils, particularly regional councils, and trying to compete in a very tight market, and the region's very tight in relation to that. We're looking at developing over the coming months an action plan as to how we can try and do things a little bit differently in relation to our recruitment, but also in terms of our retention strategies as well going forward. We're also having a good look in relation to our trainees, apprentices, and graduates to try and see how we can actually grow our own as well as part of that process. I think the other point is that it's also difficult even to get contractors to fill in the short periods of time. So we are trying to work through that process and ensure that the priority areas of council are still going forward, but we're watching it fairly closely.
Thank you very much. I've seen council actively working towards the end of the school year and picking up our locals already living here, bringing them into the family of council and training them up through the process. So I think that is a great initiative. My other question to the director is probably just about seeing, you know, what we set aside for asset renewals of $18 million. Do we have $18 million sitting in a bank account gaining interest for us, or are we only depreciating our asset value in sort of a numbers process rather than actually setting aside?
Through you, Madam Mayor. We do set the money aside, so it is budgeted each year, and whilst depreciation is an accounting term, what we do recognise is that the value of the assets will change over time. That's recognised financially as what's called depreciation. What we then do is have a look at the correlation between what that number looks like and what we intend to build in terms of future capital works, both in the current year and beyond. So the money does get set aside. It is funded money as such, so it does go through from a cash perspective in the current environment. There will be times in councils where that doesn't happen, but at this point in time, that money is being channeled into future funding avenues. So whilst it's recognised as an expense, at year end we will recognise unders and overs, for want of a better term, and then have a look at what that impacts on the budget for the reserves and the reserve monies that we hold, so that money is set aside for future capital expenditure, particularly against the big classes of assets, whether that be roads, the transport network, whether that's water and sewer pipes, the big asset infrastructure that we hold. We do need to fund that replacement over time. This is just one of the mechanisms we use to do that. Obviously, you'll see in our accounts that we also get grants and subsidies from other levels of government, and at times contributions from other outside stakeholders that help fund the future infrastructure for the region. So whilst there are accounting entries that are going on there, we do make sure that there's a correlation between what's collected and what's spent each year.
No other further comments or questions? Can I put that to the vote that we receive the report, financial report? All those in favour? Motion is carried 7-0. So next on our agenda is our confidential matters, item number 12, confidential matters. So I'd like to move that we go into a closed session. Thank you, seconded by Councillor Clifford. So we will ask the members of the public to leave. Thank you very much. So the council has closed the meeting at 10:51 in accordance with section 254J of the Local Government Regulations 2012 for closed meetings. Is the live stream off?
Yes, we voted.
seconded by councillor Clifford. All those in favour?
Yay.
Motion's carried 7-0.
That was Hall and Clifford.
Yes.
7-0 was the vote. Are we on the live stream? Is live stream back? Yep, so welcome back to the live stream. Just to clarify, the meeting was closed and it was carried 7-0, which I think I clicked off before we voted on that one. So we're going to item 12.1, the request to write off the waste-related charges and assessment. Moved by councillor Simpson, seconded by councillor Collins. Any comments or questions? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Motion is carried 5-2. Moving on to item 12.2, the bad debt write-off for general debtors. Moved by councillor Brunker, seconded by councillor Clifford. And I'm just going to ask Director Jason to give the public a little bit of an overview on this one.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, this matter's come before council as it sits outside the current delegations. It relates to an outstanding unrecoverable debt that's been tied to an entity that's been in liquidation and traded into insolvency. At the end of the wash-up, whilst the figure's there for 184 and 92, the net impact to council that we're really writing off is around $68,000. So from accounting purposes, there was foregone revenue associated with the work here, and so essentially the net write-off, for want of a better term, is around the $68,000. From a resolution perspective, we need to write the total value of those debts that are currently sitting on the books off. So hopefully that gives some clarity to council.
Thank you, Director. Any other comments or questions? Motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried 7-0. So we're moving on to late report items, item number 13, which we they're back in. Slow there, Gary. Late report items. So there's no items for this late reports today. So we're going to move on to item number 14, our matters of importance, and I would like to open this up with the bats. We've had a bit of issues with the bats again back in Collinsville. So I'm going to hand over to.
Now we've got a PowerPoint as well to be loaded onto the screen that
Scott.
and speak to.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, councillors. I'd just like to provide an update on our flying fox issue out at Collinsville. I'll just click in to our slideshow. So I'll deal with the flying fox issue in a number of stages just to try and provide a little bit of background again. What we did with the big push when we engaged Biodiversity Australia, what council did after, what the current situation is now, and just some thoughts about where we might head into the future. So let's go to the purpose. So what I've done is I've divided the flying fox issue up into 5 stages. So through this presentation, I'll go through each of those stages individually, and towards the end there'll be some information on the costs. Okay, the next one. So we might start with the problem. Okay, so on the negative side, the flying fox do carry diseases. They are creating a nuisance with the community, with their feces, urine, all those sort of things. They are messy. So the 2 most important zoonotic diseases is the Australian lyssavirus and Hendra, which humans can contract through the bats. There are a range of bacteria and other viruses which can be found in the bat feces as well. There's the impacts on the roost trees themselves. So when you have hundreds of flying fox trees, they do impact on the trees. So there's a direct impact there. So the other impacts is around nuisance with noise, feces, making impacts on infrastructure, roads, community infrastructure as well. For each house which has flying fox, there's usually 3 neighbours. So while you have flying fox at one property, there's often 3 neighbours. So in reality, there's 4 properties impacted. So if we have 15 trees impacted, that's really 60 residential properties which have been impacted. The other point is we've noticed that the population is increasing over time in Collinsville. So we can expect that the flying fox over the next number of years will become a larger problem if we don't do it. Next, please. So I do have some slides just to highlight the impacts, the negative impacts. So here we have some examples of the flying fox impacting the roost trees. So they do strip all the leaves, the branches off the trees, including the pine trees. Next. So this is a slide showing the impact on the Norfolk Island pines on the left-hand side. This is Carpet Street. This is towards the end of the pyrotechnic activity we did in October, where we moved all the flying fox out. And you can see that the number of trees in that street are now denuded with leaves and impacted. Okay, next slide. So this is what the impact looks like at the house level. This is one of the houses in Carpet Street. And this is the density of, I guess, bat droppings at this particular location. So there are some health issues with this quantity of defecation. There is a nuisance impact, there is a health impact. Next. Okay, on the positive, we know the flying fox have a role in the ecosystem, seed dispersal, pollination. They help with the regeneration process of forests, so they do have a role in the ecosystem. Next, please. Okay, so this is stage 1. So this is just a really brief summary of what happened from 2019 through to August last year. So we did a number of deterrent actions, which included noise, smoke, irrigation. We do have 2 species of flying fox up there, the little reds, which are seasonal, and the black flying fox, which are more persistent. So what we found is that the black flying fox are more residential, they'll occur higher up in the trees, and they're there for most of the year. The little reds will come in maybe June, and are generally left by November. Okay, so every week or 2, we actually go out and map and count the flying fox, because we need to understand what they're doing in the community, what the impacts are, so that we can start managing the issues better. So this is what the population variations were in 2023. So the black lines are the black flying fox, and the red bars is the little red flying fox coming. So before we engaged Biodiversity Australia in August last year, we had about 10,000 flying fox in town. So it was a major nuisance to a large section of the community. Next. So we did trial a number of deterrent actions, including mobile irrigation systems. So we do have a tank on the back of the trailer with a pump. So we did experiment with irrigation pipes up trees to see if this method had some relief for the residents. We found with this particular method we could get, say, 2/3 up the pine trees, but we just couldn't budge the flying fox right up the top. In the lower, or in the shorter trees, we had a better level of success because we could reach the canopy. Next. Okay, stage 2. So we engaged Biodiversity Australia in October. The base rate was 183,000 plus 40% for the guarantee. The total cost was about 250,000, including the guarantee. So for 2 weeks, Biodiversity Australia came in with a number of staff and a range of firearms and pyrotechnics and let off thousands of crackers. Some of the crackers were noisy, some of them weren't, some of them were whistlers. There's different types of crackers for different parts of the program to herd the flying fox out of town. So at the end, I might just go back to a minute. So just at the end of the 2 weeks with Biodiversity Australia, there's less than 20 flying fox in town. So pyrotechnic activities push the flying fox over the hill, about 600 metres to Pelican Creek, where they temporarily set up camp in the creek. The location was quite good. There's good roost trees down there, there's water, great environment, but unfortunately they didn't want to stay there. So after the contract finished on the 31st, Council took over the management of the activities, and we rotated something like 11 staff through over the 3-week period. But we were fairly constrained with the number of firearms we used. We actually got some assistance from Crossmont Airport staff who had firearm licences and brought 2 staff out as part of the roster system. We tried to use the same methods as Biodiversity Australia, but we feel that we didn't have enough firearms available and we just couldn't maintain the pressure to try and keep them out of town. So on the 2nd of November, 2 days after the contractors left, there was 1,600, and around the 20th to the 23rd of November, we had to revise what activities we were doing because it was coming into the crescent period. So while the flying fox had finished their breeding, they had larger juveniles which they were starting to potentially leave in the trees. So once the adults leave the juveniles in the trees, that indicates to us that we can't do any further deterrent actions because of the risk of the juveniles falling out of the trees. So we were reaching that point around the 23rd of November where we did some nighttime monitoring and we found that the flying fox was starting to leave their juveniles in the trees at that point. Around the 10th, or after the 2nd of November, we did have a number of discussions with Biodiversity Australia about the guarantee and follow-up support. And so we did receive a couple of quotes from Biodiversity Australia for further contract work. One was for $42,000 for 14 days or $27,000 for another 7 days. After that, we did want... Yes, ma'am.
If it's a guarantee, isn't it a guarantee? Like, why would we have to pay more if they guarantee work to me and we've paid for a guarantee? I can't understand why we've got a quote there for $42,000.
That's exactly right, and they're the questions we've asked Biodiversity Australia as well. So we've got some responses back in writing. We certainly have not engaged Biodiversity Australia to do further work, but they provided quotes for that back to us as part of their response. So we have had a number of discussions with Biodiversity Australia around the contract side of things and also the guarantee. We might go to the next slide, please.
Sure. Yeah.
Can we?
Yeah. Through you. To me, a guarantee is a guarantee. So therefore, they haven't fulfilled their contract.
we might leave the questions until later.
Sorry.
Yeah, I do have a section at the end for questions because there are a few points to discuss.
Yes.
Might go on to the next slide, please. So council resolution was that council approve acceptance of the quote from Biodiversity Australia to the value of $234,000 plus costs for additional pyrotechnics to relocate the Collinsville Flying Fox to an alternative Flying Fox camp location. Furthermore, the council commenced a letter drop and provide some communications to notify Collinsville residents on this being council's last chance to resolve the issue. So no doubt in the question part of this presentation at the end we'll discuss the resolution and the way forward. Next slide please. So this is a map of Collinsville. The red stars are where we have Flying Fox. The green star is where the Flying Fox were pushed to. This is Pelican Creek. From a habitat perspective, that's a fantastic roost area for Flying Fox. There's great roost trees there, there's food, there's water. There's a few residents along that stretch of Pelican Creek who have horses. We spoke to the residents there. They have some concerns about Flying Fox moving into the area, but the actual location where the roost is, it's in unallocated state land. So I thought I'd put this slide in just to indicate that we did do some community consultation with Collinsville in October last year in the middle of the big push, pyrotechnic activity. We got about a dozen people to the meeting, and this public meeting was scheduled partway through the process so that the community could see that the pyrotechnic methods actually were working. Okay, next slide please. So this slide is an example of what the pyrotechnics look like. They're crackers, fireworks, and on the left hand side is different coloured fireworks which do different tasks. So some were screamers, some were noise, some had multiple explosions, all for different parts of the operation. Next slide. Okay, so Biodiversity Australia came in, handed over to council as per the arrangement. So council staff conducted 3 weeks of follow-up with pyrotechnics and gas guns, but at the end it didn't really work. We didn't have enough pressure put onto the Flying Fox population to keep them out of town. 11 staff rotated through that exercise for 3 weeks. We probably needed more staff on the ground, and we probably needed more firearms. So the idea was to create a curtain, basically herd the Flying Fox towards a preferred location. So at the start of the deterrent actions, there's less than 20 individuals in town. By the end of the 3 weeks, there's about 1,600. Next. So the current status is we have about 3,000 individuals in town on 14 properties in 16 trees. So last Wednesday night we conducted a nighttime monitoring exercise where we went out to see if the crashing period was over, and we found only one Flying Fox individual in the roost tree. So all the juveniles were able to fly out. So there aren't any individuals left in the tree. So technically now we could recommence deterrent activities under the Queensland guidelines. Next slide. So I thought I'd put in a couple of slides to show how we determine that there's no Flying Fox in the trees. We use a thermal scope to visit every roost tree just to make sure that there's no Flying Fox left in the trees. when we did the exercise last Wednesday night, we only found one individual, and we suspect it's quite an elderly flying fox which isn't capable of flying out. Next. Lessons learned. Yeah, look, I won't go through these in a lot of detail, but some things work, some things don't. Flying fox get used to deterrence. They certainly get used to noise and smoke. Pyrotechnics can work because a lot of the crackers are unpredictable. They have unpredictable flight paths and noises. Why urban areas? We know that flying fox have set up camps in Burdekin, Townsville, Charters Towers, Claremont, Moranbah, Ingham, Cairns. They're in a lot of urban centres up and down the coast. They're also in Brisbane, Sunshine Coast and other areas as well. Why flying fox like urban areas? It's not really the removal of habitat in rural areas. There's still plenty of good habitat out there. It's not that there's more food in urban areas, because there's not a lot of food there at the moment. The flying fox come into the towns to spend the night. They may graze through the town if there's food, but most of them will fly up to 50 kilometres a night looking for food outside of town. It's not because of water availability in urban areas. There's plenty of water in the creeks around Collinsville, outside, so it's not water related. It's the reason why the flying fox are in town is probably under the umbrella of flying fox sociology. There's some social reasons why flying fox prefer to come into urban areas. And there's a range of scientific opinion out there, and some scientists just don't know why they do it. Use of contractors and consultants. Biodiversity Australia, who we engaged, has undertaken work in 25 local governments in Queensland. Not all of the work has worked. Not all of the contracts have worked. Part of the process is that council staff in all these local government areas have to maintain pressure and a presence out there to keep the flying foxes out of town. The use of gas guns by themselves work temporarily, but they're best used in combination with pyrotechnics. We need more staff on ground with firearms if we're going to try again. Just putting one or two people out there is largely a waste of time. We need more staff to apply the pressure. We need to use the pyrotechnics to create a barrier and herd the bats towards a safe area, and to indicate to the bats that certain areas are no go. And the best time to use deterrence is before sunrise, 4:45 to 6 a.m. After 6 a.m, it's pretty much a waste of time. Okay, next. Okay, the costs. So stage one, before the big push, was $114,000 over a 3-year period. Cost of the big push was, including the guarantee and GST, $257,000. Council staff time about $14,000, including wages, vehicle expenses, accommodation, etc. Stage 3, the 3 weeks after, the staff cost was about $18,000, including wages, accommodation, all of those costs. From November to March 1st, we've done very minimal work out there, it's just monitoring, so it would be less than $1,000. Stage 5, from March onwards, there's a number of options. If we do use the pyrotechnics in 5 staff, 2 staff from Collinsville, 3 external, we're looking at about $8,000 a week, $32,000. Then after that, we would reduce the number of staff and just maybe keep 2 staff on ground for the month of May. Next. So going forward, there's a few options. Option 1, do nothing. Option 2, big push 2, use the pyrotechnics and council resources. Option 3, develop a fund to assist affected residents to live with flying fox, clean rooms, buildings, help them establish indoor washing areas, air conditioning units, that type of activity. Option 4, establish temporary and mobile irrigation systems for affected residents. So purchase more tanks and pumps on trailers where we can move them around to the affected properties and the trees. We might need at least half a dozen of these things, maybe more. Each of those mobile irrigation units are about $15,000 each. Option 5, cut the trees down. So what we found is if there's no trees, there's no roost. We've trimmed trees and it's temporarily worked. But in most cases, the bats have just gone to the neighbouring trees or in the neighbourhood. It's an option. There would be some large impacts on the amenity of Collinsville. And it's not cheap. If the bats are in the trees, it could cost $10,000 a tree because you have to do it at night. You've got to have all the safety equipment. The trees through the day with no bats. Depending on the size of the tree and access, it could be a couple of grand per tree. Go next. So if we go with option 2, which is big push 2, we'll call it, in March, it'd probably be, one of the things we'd be looking at doing is doing up a community consultation plan, surveying the community, working out whether the community would be happy for us to do pyrotechnics again. I know the residents with the flying fox in the backyards would support it, but whether the neighbourhood and the larger community would still support pyrotechnics, we probably need to ask the question. We would need to prepare for the pyrotechnic action, so we now have additional firearms, additional shotguns. We have the pyrotechnics themselves, the crackers, ready to go. We're finalising the paperwork to make sure that staff with the firearm licences are on our council firearms permit so they can legally discharge firearms. We need to develop a roster with available staff so that we can maintain the pressure on the flying fox population over a number of weeks. And then in April, we would reduce the number of staff to possibly 2 on ground, working between 4:30 in the morning and 6:30 in the morning. So early starters. That's one option at the moment. That's what we're thinking. But we might go to the next slide. So with the complaints we've received regarding the flying fox, we know we've spent a lot of money on the deterrence to date. Should we maintain some level of operations out there with the knowledge we have now, with the materials we have? Is a possible resolution that council resolves to instruct the CEO to continue flying fox roost deterrent actions using council existing staff resource and budgets to move the flying fox out of the Collinsville township. I'd like to open it up to questions and comments.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor, to Scott. We've been out there and we've trimmed trees at our expense at night and done all those kind of things. So what did that do and how much did that cost over the past few years? Because I believe it was considerable.
So the 3 years prior to August last year, council spent about $114,000. That includes tree trimming. So we did tree trimming at a number of sites in town, including Pelican Park. So a large amount of that $114,000 was tree trimming.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Scott. Obviously concerned for the amenity of the residents affected by this. I've also been concerned by the residents emailing me saying there's noticeable yellow crazy ants running around their houses, their animals in other areas. This is a declared pest we had a 3 bait program. Unfortunately, that fell by the wayside while I'd watched extra staff going out to deal with bats. That's difficult for me to comprehend when I know your resources are tight. But I do feel we just can't keep throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars a year at this. When we leave the trees, we know they'll come back. When you're talking about doing this screening and trying to shoo them out of town, I feel they'll come back. Is there a possibility within this that we target the specific trees, use your shield around those, keep the bats out, and the residents agree to dropping that tree during daylight hours, no bats in it, and then we find out if it just goes to the neighbours, or do we find out that we should have just left them in Pelican Park? They might move back there and we should have never started trying to shift them in the first place. But do we also schedule additional replanting in our preferred roost sites? I do know Pelican Creek's possible, but what came down to 70 metres away from houses last time, and if there's horses on those sites, the virus coming through the bats into the horses is going to transmit to people in the placenta virus far worse than the possibility of the few occasions where someone has actually been bitten or scratched and received virus directly. So I do think we really have to consider pushing them into these areas where people do have horses, but I do think we need to look for tangible outcomes. And if that means the residents would rather lose their tree than be covered in bat poo, I think this targeting specific trees, removing those trees, replacing them in more favourable conditions would be the sort of thing I'd consider supporting, but not this constant push out, because we've already had that experience that over a number of years that it's expensive and doesn't give us the outcomes we seek.
Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. Scott, over the last couple of weeks, like this is another major issue again in Collinsville. We have been notified, and like seeing the photo with the bat droppings all over the bins, it is a concern for parents as well, because kids are outside. If it's on the bins, it's on the play equipment and that with the kids. So the parents are very concerned, and I did get a report of a little boy who was taken up the Collinsville Hospital last week, and they were, quite concerned. So I just hope when it comes to the health and welfare of our residents, I think we need to try everything possible. I think we've started this big push. I think we've committed to that, and I think we do need to use our council resources, because that was my understanding, that we agreed to this knowing that we've also had a role to play in pushing them out of town. So along with, and I'm for anything, and I think the residents would be up for anything as well, and if it meant combining that with not just tree trimming, cutting. We need to do a decent cut. And maybe, look, I know with the facade policy, for example, like business owners, there's a 50-50, whether we can set up some sort of policy moving forward into the future where we can do that type of thing. So we are still supporting the residents, and they're trying as well. I just think we just need to come up with other ideas. We just can't say, we've tried, too bad, so sad. Look, I just think we do owe it to the residents, and to continue this, and health and safety of people is paramount in my mind.
Thank you, Councillor. Right. Did we add up those costs? It was up there on the board. Did anyone get a figure of what that actually came to?
No.
Quick. Can someone please, while I have a bit of a chat,
400,000.
380. 380,000.
what we've spent already? Totally understand this is a massive issue for the residents of Collinsville, and I certainly wouldn't want them in my trees. And I didn't support this last year, and the reason I didn't support it last year was because of the timing. We knew that the little reds were about to leave, and we knew that the black bats were potentially going to be crashing. So I didn't support it then, and I felt like we should have waited off till this year, and this is where we should be doing it. So that's one of my gripes. The other one is about really want to know why that guarantee is not being honoured. Is it something written up in the contract that we missed, or is it that they're just playing not nice? And, you know, at the end of the day, I know that we have an obligation to our community, but where do we draw the line between what's a community responsibility and what's a council responsibility? And are the community doing absolutely everything that they can to support council in what we do moving forward? Sorry, need a bit of water. Thank you. And the other thing is, I think before we do anything, public consultation, because while we did, sorry, have some support for the relocation of the bats, there was other people that were inconvenienced and actually weren't happy with it. So I think one of the first things that we should do is actually find out what do the community of Collinsville want us to do. Because like I said, did we get a figure?
405,000.
So we've already spent 405,000.
Madam Mayor, can I just, councillors should be aware we haven't paid biodiversity. Hold them back and we're pushing back. Okay, so councillors just need to be aware of that.
So just to clarify, Director, no payment at all has been made to biodiversity?
None.
Okay. Well, that,
Madam Mayor, we've had letters of demand, but we're pushing back and we're dealing with it through contracts and we're going to continue to push back. Scott actually has a meeting set down for Monday is your meeting, with a number of other councillors, including Burdigan, Isaac, there's a number of them anyway, who have also had biodiversity. They're dealing with similar situations that we're dealing with as well to work through that. But no, we have made no payment.
okay. Thank you. Yes,
Move to
Sean?
table. Move to table to the next council, because we can't, until we finally find out what the outcome is from the conversations with the mob involved there. I think we need to have all that information on hand, you know, so I think move to table.
Seconded by Councillor Clifford.
While we're doing that, I think we need to maybe, like you suggested, go out to consultation and talk to the people, because like while we're not doing anything, the situation is getting worse. And I know, Madam Mayor, you said that there was an issue, we should have waited, but we're dealing with wild animals. Like, when is the good time? Like, they're just unpredictable. Other councils have struggled with this for many years, decades. So I don't think there's ever a right time, but all we can do is just keep pushing forward with this. So, yeah, look, if we have the staff and everything's ready, look, I would like to see us continue with this. And the troublesome trees that we do have, like, maybe next council we can come up with a solution for tree cutting. But yeah, I really would like to continue to do something for the residents, to offer some sort of relief to the residents out there.
So can I just clarify that we're tabling this report for the next council? Okay, so that's the resolution, tabling the report for the next council. It was moved by Councillor Clifford. Oh, sorry, Councillor Collins. It was seconded by. Yes, thank you.
Have they ever tried with you, particularly with your watering up the trees? Have you ever watched the footy on a Friday night when they score a try and you get the big flames come out of the gas flames? So they've moved away from setting off firecrackers because of the smoke. And I was wondering, with a combination of water up in the trees and hitting them with decent gas, maybe whether the steam or the heat might get rid of them rather than the noise.
Yeah, we have to be careful not to
Cook them.
harm them. So we can't
Steam.
steam and have the barbecue. We can't impact the flying fox. We can't injure them. So the idea with the irrigation of the trees is they don't like the water coming from below. So if you spray water up into their faces, they don't like that. They're more than happy to be there in the rain with the water coming down. It's just the water going up which they find annoying. But just to try and get a good amount of time to maintain that pressure of the trees is difficult. So with our irrigation systems which we had, we were getting about 25 minutes out of the tank. And then we had to...
So the actual motion is that we table this for the next council. So that's probably what we should pull up and vote on right at this moment.
Before we do that, but we're not going to do anything until the next council. Not going to do a thing.
Well, maybe we could add in there about the public consult. Oh no, that's a new motion.
Look, I'm reading
Well, I
this.
think we should vote on this, councillor, and then first. That's the motion that's up on the board. It's been moved and it's been seconded.
Yeah, but in the report, there's actions for the next month.
Yeah, that's
In the report, there's actions that we can be doing, so.
so we can still move forward, because that's why the way I read that resolution, it's saying that it's just a continuation of what we've already agreed to. Is that right? Is that how I'm reading it?
The proposed resolution I had up there, or the possible resolution, was to continue with planning for the deterrence.
Yeah.
With the view that we wouldn't commence any deterrence probably until April. So we do need to go out and do some community consultation with the community, some surveys, etc., and do some planning before we actually do any more pyrotechnic. So we wouldn't be able to do it until early April anyway.
Yeah, but as long as it doesn't come to a standstill, that's what I'm concerned about. Like,
Councillor, we can continue doing the monitoring and just the basic work that we do. A couple of times a week out there anyway, or 3 times. Then I'll be back from leave after this week, and so she's out there doing the counting, doing the basics, talking to the people. So as long as we can keep doing that, Madam Mayor, like until we get through.
You're doing that anyway, aren't you?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's part of our daily operations, yeah, so.
So it's daily
You're happy
operations.
with, if councillors are happy with that, we'll continue.
Couldn't you slip a consultation in, because you know then what the new council, would you be coming back with the information for the new council? Because by the time the election's held, 10 days, it's the end of March, and then so you're into April with the new council, whether consultation can be taken within the next month. And then that way you can give the new council a heads up. This is what we did. You got 10 people want to save the bats, 1,000 want to get rid of them. Then you can decide whether you're going to keep going.
The motion is to lay it on the table. However, the CEO can make a comment here as well.
Madam Chair, what I suggest is if that's pushed forward, what the CEO and our operational components will do is we'll continue doing the basics, we'll continue doing the monitoring, we'll still do the planning for where we can get to, and obviously we'll do a degree of consultation, more consultation after the caretaker period post the 16th. So that would be the instruction from that to me, to continue doing those elements, and then to bring that back to council with a full proposal as to where we go forward.
Okay, so can I put that motion to the vote, please? All of those in favour? All of those against? Motion is carried 6-1. Did anyone else have any matters of importance today? Yes.
Just relative to the rates recently going out, and I know change of council and moving into the new budgeting, just in relation to those members of the public who are being hit with substantial rate bills and come to us for a payment plan, do they lose their 5% discount and then get charged whatever our 11.64% interest rates on those payments as they move forward? Because I think these are the people who are really reaching out for financial assistance.
Madam Mayor, it's hard to make a blanket response. I think if you give me the individual cases, the officers can make contact with those people. You know, it's not my understanding there have been blanket increases out there to the majority of the population. So if we're dealing with valuation changes, then we'll work with the ratepayers individually on those issues. I just need my staff to know who they are so that we can contact them and work through it.
Not so much about rate increases over this period to the last period, it's just when people do ask to pay their rates off on a payment plan.
You won't get the discount.
So not anyone that's had an increased rate, just someone who comes to council asking for a payment plan rather than the one bulk payment. Do they lose the 5% discount even if they approached before that date? And then are those charges, you know, adding up with 11.64% interest during that payment schedule?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the discount period is for early payment, so if the rates aren't paid by that date, then the amount essentially gets grossed up. I don't think the interest rate you're quoting me is quite right. I think it's less than that. I don't know that off the top of my head. I need to get back to you with the exact interest rate if it becomes an outstanding rates matter. But, you know, it used to be 11% for a long time. It's been reduced with changes in the interest rate cycle now. I'd need to look that figure up, Madam Mayor, and I can provide that to Councillor after the meeting.
Thank you. So no more matters of importance? No. So I would actually like to give a closing speech, as this is my final meeting for the term. And after much reflection and consideration, I did make the very difficult decision not to seek re-election this term, and I will give you councillors an opportunity to also have a say as well. So as I prepare to pass the torch to the new leadership team, I'm really filled with a sense of gratitude and pride for the privilege and honour of serving as your mayor, and absolutely humbled by the messages of gratitude and support that I've received since my decision to not seek re-election. Hand on heart, I can honestly say that I've worked incredibly hard and done my absolute best. I've worked very determinedly for the residents, and I really hope that council continues the legacy to acknowledge the voice of the community first and foremost. I wish to acknowledge and thank my Deputy Mayor, Gary Simpson, for your integrity and support and being my backup. You did a marvellous job. I'm sure now you won't get any more phone calls that you have to hide. And I also want to thank Marty Matheson, my personal assistant, who supported me wholeheartedly with her assistance. And I also wish Marty all the best in her new role, as she also is sadly moving on from council. I want to thank you, a big thank you to my fellow councillors for mostly playing nice around the boardroom table. You've made life easier by doing so, so thank you. And to the CEO, directors and WRC staff, I wish to thank everyone who's helped me along the way and who's given me support. And to the staff who work tirelessly for the betterment of their community and council, I say thank you. I'm incredibly proud of what we've achieved together while I've been at the table. The community engagement strategy to ensure our community is heard and at the forefront of our decision making. We've worked hard at supporting our community through these tough times. We've stepped up to try and battle the housing crisis in the region. We've delivered our local government housing plan and resolved to donate land to help with homelessness of women over 50 and accommodation for allied health workers. The record-breaking Mayor's Ball raised over $100,000 for my two chosen charities, Whitsunday Housing and CQ Rescue. We've delivered many infrastructure projects around the region, and this year, with a new directorate being formed, we are now much closer to meeting our objectives than we were previously. Our airport continues to grow and smash record after record. Gold at the Whitsunday Tourism Awards, gold at the State Awards, and we're now going for gold at the Nationals. We're still on track to receive 580,000 passengers through this financial year, and the new airport master plan will be coming to the new council soon. I could go on about our achievements of council, but I really want to touch on what my disappointment are on what I didn't see achieved for our region as your mayor. Hamilton Plains and Gorganga Plains flood immunity projects. I've lost count on how many times the goalpost has been moved on these two vital projects, and as chair of the local disaster management group, I saw firsthand how vital these projects are to the safety of our community. Hamilton Plains flooded again just last week, putting the lives of our community and council workers at risk. When this road floods, it cuts off vital emergency services access to the Proserpine Hospital, a huge problem and a stress when we're trying to keep the community safe in wet season and during cyclones. According to the state government documentation, Hamilton Plains does not appear to be on the list of projects at threat of losing funding under the federal government infrastructure review announced by Minister King on the 8th of June or around that date. Nor did Hamilton Plains appear on the list of outcomes of the review released in late November 2023. However, in recent conversations, DTMR have told us that they're awaiting the outcome of the infrastructure review. If it's not on the infrastructure review list and the infrastructure review outcomes have been released, why is this funding still under review? Further to that, what appears to be even more odd is that on the 13th of February 2024, their website was updated saying that Hamilton Plains would commence construction mid-2024. However, officers within TMR are stating it will be going out to tender mid-year and that it will not commence construction until late 2024. It is also not council holding it up with the bore relocation either. Council will not sign off on a bore until a new bore is in the production and its performance can be assessed. People of the Whitsundays deserve to be treated better than this, and I will be writing one final letter to the Minister to ask the state government to please explain and give the truth to the people of the Whitsundays and Council of when this project is going to start, and do the state actually have money for it. Housing and accommodation are a huge issue in our region, and we have done our local government housing plan, and I say enough planning and enough talk. Now we really need to start to see the rubber hit the road, with the state and federal governments stepping up and working more proactively with councils to deliver more on-ground housing options to communities in need. These are two disappointments amongst a backdrop of achievements, and neither are in council's control, but are both vital for our community moving forward. And I really hope the new council continue with the development of our advocacy plan. Shifting focus, I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the retirement from local government of Councillor Michael Brunker. His dedication, passion and tireless service to the community over the past 30 years as both a former mayor and councillor has to be acknowledged with gratitude from all of us present here and the community you have served. I will certainly never forget my very first public speech at the Don River Dash when I forgot your name. I really did forget and I was so embarrassed. As this is the final meeting of this term of council, I do want to again extend my heartfelt best wishes to each of my councillors. May you continue on into the new term serving your community with integrity, compassion and dedication, and may your future endeavours be filled with success and fulfilment. Thank you to you all. So while my time in office may be coming to an end, my commitment to serving our community still remains steadfast. But I am forever grateful for the opportunity to have served as your mayor, and I am confident that under the leadership of our incoming council, the Whitsundays will continue to thrive and prosper. We are the caretakers of an amazing and diverse part of the world, and it has been my absolute honour and privilege to serve you. Thank you. Now, to any other councillors, would you like to? Yes, Councillor.
I suppose I could say a few words, Madam Mayor. Since my parole board hearings come up, I'm being released today after 26 years. So I did ask Councillor Wright to arrive a bit late this morning because I remember back in '94, my very first council meeting, we were 10 minutes late to be sworn in. And we walked in, and it was a very officious. The old CEOs in those days they used to haunt houses on weekends. They were very scary. And I just walked in, and they all looked at it. And I was trying to fit Councillor Neil Stone. We used to wear ties in those days. He didn't have a tie, so I had to try and fit his tie on his big buff head. And we walked in, and he said, "Where have you been?" And I said, "Oh, Council Roadworks held us up on the Collinsville Road. We're sorry we're late." But so over those 26 years, it has been a fun time. Through thick and thin. I remember after a month being elected as mayor, I was down at the Proserpine Lestag Oval, and I got a phone call at the bar. Is Mike Brunker there? Yeah, and it was the Courier Mail telling us that the meatworks was closing. Would I like to make a comment? And I said, I'm not aware of it closing. And they said, yes, the Borthwicks have just announced that the meatworks will be closing. So we lost the meatworks, the power station, and the mine closed all in one go. So I think it was about 2,000 odd jobs throughout the region that we then had to obviously scramble. And coming from a union background, I thought the only chance we had was to try and get management and the workers together. And I had a feeling that was never going to work because they originally wanted to close it anyway. But that was certainly a huge introduction to the mayoralty, and then probably learning how much the mayoral role means, particularly the fact that with government and your Ergons and your Telstras, where you could really help people. Lobbying governments over the years, they've always been my colour mainly. I started with Rob Borbidge as a premier, but and with all they know the colours of the particular mayors, and we got on quite well. But it was probably the different Labor governments over the years. They sometimes try and take you for advantage. And I mean, the amount of times we've had to clip a minister around the ear, and particularly one day I got home, and you usually know when a minister rings you because you usually try and ring a minister all the time and you're waiting on hold, or they'll eventually get around to you. But this particular day, I made a comment in the Courier Mail that the Deputy Premier had to pull his finger out and get the missing rail link and Abbott Point going. And then at lunch, I got this phone call up, Minister Lucas would like to talk to you. And well, we had the biggest blowdown row on the phone you've ever seen in your life, and the expletives and everything else was going. And Kylie came out and said, "What the hell's going on here?" Anyway, the funny thing was the chairman of the Ports Authority was in the meeting straight after I'd hung up, and I met with her a week later, and she said, "Jesus, what did you?" She said, "What did you say to the minister?" She said, "I had the unpleasurable. I had to meet with him straight after your phone call." She said he was ropeable, and I said, "Oh, we just had a bit of a chat," and then the minister said something like, "Oh, it's I forget the words he used, but it was anyway. It doesn't matter." But it was after that to square off with him. We had to open the Coral Cove resort, so I invited him up to open that just to square up with him. So, and he was quite character building. That was it. He said, "Talking to that bloody Mayor of Bowen, it's character building." So, but over the years, I suppose the worst part is the probably being the amalgamation where you lose that community feel as a local government. We used to do a lot of things when you say Bowen Shire. Julie, with all her staff, you'd be involved with Clean Up Australia Days and Million Paws Walks, and the staff would donate their times to do that. But I suppose when amalgamation come along, you just lose that community feel of that community where you come from. But we've certainly done quite well. But besides being attacked by a deer and getting 3 stitches and appearing in a nude calendar in Collinsville, which they only printed 3,000 copies, and they had to print another 2,000, so it was a record 5,000. Actually, when the nude calendar was released, we knocked the Barley Bomber off the front page of the Townsend Bully. It was nationwide press the Barley Bomber, but the Townsend Bully run a photo of me as Mr. January. in the new calendar. So all of which today you'd be up in front of the OIA as a code of conduct, just for simply helping your community. The counter disaster role was always good, as the Mayor previously said. Getting a phone call at 9 o'clock at night about the Hideaway Bay slip, and Gary and I going around, and in those days you could drive through a few flooded creeks just to get there to make sure that everything was okay, or the guys on the stop and go would tell you that the truckies are about to revolt out at the Delta because we've closed the road. So out we'd go, and the minute a white Toyota pulled up with some guys dressed like you fellas, like we used to in those days, the truckies just come across out of the Delta service station, and it was on. It was like a TW, Transport Workers Union meeting, and we just stood our ground and explained why we were doing it, and they were all up me because I could hear them on the two-way on the going out, what they were calling me. So yeah, we faced them down, and then I think towards the end they respected the fact that we went out and just talked to them anyway. But it has been wonderful. So I'd like to particularly mention Gary Martin, my engineer, and Tim Rose and John Finlay were the two CEOs that I worked with. So very happy, and it'll be over, and I certainly won't be appearing in the gallery to be harassing councillors in the future. Certainly happy to lend my advice, but I won't be turning up asking questions and carrying on. So thanks very much, and particularly the staff over the years. We've had some great ones and we've had some duds, and usually we got rid of the duds. But all in all, the staff have been absolutely terrific in both the Old Bowen and the Amalgamated Council. So thank you. Cheers.
Does anyone else want to say something? Yes.
Just thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Wish you all the best in the future. And I know we've had some passionate debate over the last 12 months, but wish you all the best. Today I would like to acknowledge and celebrate the achievements of Councillor Branca as he embarks on his new chapter, and for an impressive 26 years as Mayor and Councillor. He's been the heartbeat of our community, tirelessly dedicating himself to making Bowen, Collinsville and the Whitsunday region the vibrant, thriving place it is today. In the 4 years I've had the honour of serving alongside Mike, I've come to appreciate his dedication and knowledge for every aspect of council life. But it's his unparalleled ability to inject life and laughter into even the most mundane council meetings. The jokes, particularly the same ones that come up every year without fail around budget time, and the witty one-liners, have never failed to bring a smile to our faces and lighten the mood. And never sure what you're going to come out with next. But Michael's impact extends far beyond his humour. His visionary leadership and unwavering commitment have left a mark on our community, from infrastructure projects to community initiatives to possessing the skills needed to discuss the hard topics with ministers. Fighting for what our community needed has shaped our region for the better. As Michael steps into the local government retirement, I've no doubt that he will continue to be our best advocate. On behalf of the entire community, that includes previous staff, I'd like to thank you for everything you have created, and it's a legacy that you've left. Thank you.
Thank you.
Collins?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thanks, Julie, and thanks, Mike, for all your works. Look, I'm quite happy to admit that I'm extremely happy that I don't have to go through the process of pre-poll this time around.
Yes.
Being elected uncontested, my councillor Clifford and two of my fellow dodos here, and one's retired, so I think maybe the best thing someone in the Whitsunday should do now is take that billboard down, because all the people coming in from the airport are seeing this sign. What the hell? This is a tourism town. We're worried about a few billboards putting tourists off down the beach, but that one out there is making us look like dills. I'm sorry, but there's been some full-page ads taken out by an organisation and a businessman, us four councillors, and And it really goes to show we're all unopposed. Do the people want development? Do they want the place going ahead, or like it says, they want to stay in dinosaur land? So anyway, I just leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Councillor Clifford?
First of all, I'd like to thank you for your friendship and guidance and all the stuff that you do, which is really, really great. Thank you to the staff. As John said, you know, I will be re-elected. At the moment, I'm still technically a candidate, but I do get my job back. I've really enjoyed the last 16 years of working with and for the community, and will continue to do so for the next 4. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Typical me, I'll be short and brief to the point, but to Mike and Mayor Julie, congratulations on what you've done for the region and all the best for the future. And thank my supporters out there, no one's nominated against me this time around, and fellow councillors and the staff through the term. And I'd just like to acknowledge, like Jason always says, the highlight of the meeting, it says stuff, but with the election going on at the moment, this is not electioneering either, but our books are pretty solid. When I started, we owed 80 odd million, and now we're down to in the 60s. So there's 5 odd mil that goes out each year that a lot of public don't realise. So our books are solid, and it's to do with some of these councillors around the table that have been there a long time. So I'd just like to, for the staff and everyone here, I'd just like to say thumbs up.
So I'd like to show my appreciation, long-standing and new. I think it does take a mix of people to make a council, but the important thing is the community service. I appreciate both of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So that stop it. So that actually brings us to the end of our meeting today. So I will officially close the last meeting of this term, closed at 12:17 p.m. Thank you everyone for your attendance.